Hi everyone, welcome to our OLM community meeting. And I'm going to share my screen first. Then we can go through the discussion topics. We do not have Ed1 till now in this meeting, so probably I'll just wait and skip to the um, next two topics. So Camila, do you want to go first with your topic? How do you want to manage OLM V1 roadmap?
Yeah, I think we added that a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the when was the last time it was updated? It's probably so 2 months back. So in 2 months, a lot of things have changed, and we should we should update the roadmap again. So we can every month, maybe the first, like today is the first meeting, right? The first meeting of every month, we can actually make it like a permanent agenda in our weekly the community meeting where like every month first meeting we discuss about our roadmap and see what has changed and probably discuss some other things. Um,
What about if we just link the epics? I don't know if it would be so easy link the epics. Just one idea. I don't know if we have one epic for each roadmap item or
yeah, that's a that's a good suggestion as well.
because if we link the epics, right, we don't need a update so much, or we can update sometimes just okay, this epic is closed now 1 2 3, we can put like a mark like a done in front of each one like one okay, I don't know.
I have
But
a
I don't know if we actually have one epic for each item or more epics for each item. And how hard would it be to do that? It's not a priority, right? As well. Just
So and I just put in the chat too, but one of the challenges that we faced here, this was an early document, and one of the things we ran into immediately was that a lot of these concepts are too high level to really map with an epic, and so we needed to invest some effort to try to break them down more into chewable chunks. So it might be that one approach here is to look at to revisit these and identify which ones are still um, on the table and try to break them down in a meaningful way so that we could map them to epics. Sorry, Mikhail, I see your hands up.
yeah, I was going to say that maybe, radical thought, maybe let's nuke this document at all, because I think it is from maybe 2 years ago, or when we originally started LMV1. I think it was even before I joined this effort. I don't think there was many changes. For example, there is a F4 dependency review. We don't support dependencies right now, and I don't think we have any
Plans.
immediate plans or even relatively medium long-term plans to do that.
Right.
And we had this and we abandoned this. So that's one thing. So I think it's quite outdated, and as Jordan pointed out, that's one thing. Another thing, I think roadmap should be in the issue tracker. I don't think it's valuable to maintain this document and an issue tracker. So as long as we have epics and we have um, you know 1.1, 1.2 milestones in the issue tracker, I think we should be good.
So, Mikhail, your suggestion of just maintaining the epics, it works well with people who are already part of the project, like who are already been contributing, they kind of, attending the meeting, they understand context. Somebody who is coming new to the project, um, it's hard to actually go through the epics and comprehend everything. But yeah, that's why I think this document is helpful. But I also, I mean, I'm not just basically playing devil's advocate. It's not like I'm taking any sides at this point. But I think also maintaining this document also is gonna be a lot of like some effort, and always it would be out of date, and it's hard to keep it up to date unless we explicitly
Uh,
put efforts.
okay. I'm just like on the spot trying to think of any open source projects who maintain similar kind of the document. Like for example, I'm watching the one of the issues, one of the features, following one of the features in Golang, which been dragging from release to another release, which will hopefully will be released soon. But I think it's, you know, most of the projects I know of, they just use issue trackers and don't bother maintaining this because we're not committing on the upstream level to anything. And things can be things which are planned for 1.1 can end up in 1.4 and or maybe we can maybe bring something forward, change the priority. I don't think it's worth the effort to maintain this document. I think it's probably better if we uh, create epics for every um, point here with the information from the document um, for points which are still relevant, and maybe have a very high level document describing future direction somewhere in the documentation. But
Yeah,
I
we
don't think
have
it's very valuable, this one.
yeah we have actually design decision document. So um, there are some documents which gives a understanding of what OLM view wants, the design principles, or at least the idea of why you are doing it and which direction the project will take as compared to V0. So there are some documents here. It's not completely empty at this point. But yeah, I agree that maintaining this document would be always kind of a pain. So um, and does not impact, like if you think about the way we are planning things in upstream, how many times do we refer to this document? I think Neil, right? I don't think we ever refer to this document in all the past meetings I have been here. So so having, if you're not using that much, probably nuking it is probably a better idea.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we use it that much as a reference point, and in my opinion, we are doing pretty decent job for an open source project to maintain visibility into the future, short and medium term future with uh, milestones like 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, etc.
Yeah, I think
So how about as a middle ground here? Can we slap a deprecated notice on this doc and put an action item in the meeting notes to see if anybody's interested in scanning through this document and making sure that the relevant bits are represented in an epic somewhere in our project? And if not, to create those.
I, I think that is a great idea, right? We should ensure that everything in this document is in epics, right? To help us to planning the stuff.
yeah, I agree. I think I agree with you, Jordan. I was thinking the same thing about the deprecation notice on this document, and then making sure things are represented in epics, and then basically then we can remove that document.
But one point is, if we each item of this document become a epic, we can create add the link for the document with the Epic, right? So then we don't need to maintain the document, because if I want to do, if it's something done, I click on the link and see if the Epic is done or not.
Yeah, that's fine, but still we have to, because right now we are maintaining this.
We need to update the roadmap to ensure that everything that you want to do is in the roadmap as well, right? Not only in the epics. It's more one place to sync the stuff.
Camille, I'm not sure if I understood. I think you are saying that once it is linked, you don't have to do anything. Is that what you're
No,
suggesting?
no, my thought was like, if we ensure that each item in the roadmap is a epic, and then we add the link for the epic, we don't need to update this document with the status. Is the epic done or not? Because we can click on the link and see the stats. However, I agree that is still a effort that maybe we don't want to spend, right? That is the reason for we duplicate the document. Because if you will want new goals, we also need to update this document. It's another place for we sync the stuff that we are
Right,
not using, right?
right, exactly. So if you get new epics now, which is maybe right now it looks all good, but maybe 6 months down the line, um, we might get new epics, which is not even part of the roadmap right now. Like the topics are not even listed there. So we have to again update the roadmap. So I think I,
You can create a action item for me, and I will try to get it done before the next community meeting. Create all epics, because then that will be interest for me. Then I can review our backlog. I can learn more. If I be unable to deliver until the next meeting, I will let you know. Let's see. I will try, do my best effort.
yeah, cool. I don't need to write anything here because we already have action items.
Yeah, thanks, Camila, for doing this. And yeah, if I imagine that it might be tricky for you to figure
Yeah,
out what's still actually what we still plan to do or not. So don't hesitate to ask somewhere in Slack, and
I,
uh,
I'm accounting with that I can ask it, right? Because that will be nice for me, because I can learn what was done or not as well, right? So
yeah.
the yeah.
So
So
Camila, I
yeah,
think
I
let's,
will.
I would say even I also need to learn what are the things here is valid and not valid. So can we do it together? Can you do in a meeting?
Yes, yes, yeah. We can try to do it together.
Because
Why not?
I think it's a good source of information to make sure because like, the more clarity I have on the OLM V1 roadmap in upstream, and I think it will help in general. Um,
Yes, for sure. I put myself to help as you wish.
yeah, yeah, no, I think we should do together. I think that would be good. Also, the information, this kind of information more widespread in the team, I think is great. Cool. So we covered that. So is do you guys see Edmund joined already or is he? I'm not sure if it's Edmund in here. Okay, so I don't see Edmund. I wanted to talk about the monorepo epic because Edmund has written the RFC. And yesterday also we had a little bit discussion about this, and Rashmi was interested to contribute here, so we wanted to kickstart the discussion again because even if you have written RFC in the past and everything, like we all reviewed it and everything, but it's been like at least now 2 months now, or maybe more than a month now, and need to consider few things like especially Red Hat has dependency on OLM this repo, so syncing with down Red Hat folks to make sure we are not breaking them, or anybody else who is using this repo, make sure that we don't break them. But Edmund is not here, so probably we'll reach out to him offline and get started with the discussion. Anyone have anything else on this topic? Cool. Moving to the next topic, which is we wanted to refine the V1 epics. So we have a lot of epics on V1, and we want to go through. I want to go through again and see if we want to have all these epics for V1, or you can actually push something to V2, which is less priority. And because the smaller the iterations are, is better for us, then we can, release um, every like in a faster cadence, which is good because it's good to get feedback. And the slowly, we won't even realize that in a year we would have done a lot of things. So rather than waiting for several months to do the next release, we should think about how sooner we can actually, like any feature we add, even if there is just one feature, but maybe we can one or two features, but that we can release 1.0, 1.1, and then actually move everything to 1.2. So probably, I think as a community, we have not discussed about a cadence yet. But I mean, whatever I don't know personally at this point what cadence will work for us. But I think in general, every 2 months or so usually works for a lot of projects, 2 to 3 months. Any suggestions, any comments you guys have on this?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I am up for shorter cadence, but also wanted to say that I think what we currently have in implementing is probably not going to be enough for a 1.1 release, because those are mostly like performance and scale. I don't know what is going to come out of this. Maybe there will be some improvements, but it will probably not be uh, you know it will probably not deserve a 1.1 mark on its own, and combining two things into monorepo probably as well. So I think we need something else on top of that, or instead of that.
So the performance scale, definitely we can talk about this. I can move into this column because it's some time we have, last time we discussed. And the monorepo thing, we had it like the previous discussions, right? I think in general, the common understanding was we can do it after 1.0, and sooner we do it, it's better for us because it will reduce, like, in general, the churn. And even if upstream, two different repos, and like merging PRs in both the repos and things like that. Um,
Yeah, I agree with that, but like from a user perspective, is it 1.1 material on its own?
yeah, it's no, it's not. No, on its own, it's not. I agree.
So yeah, that's what I'm like trying to
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
that we
I got
probably
it.
need something else on top of that.
Right, right. So this all epics are for 1.1. I mean, this is the first iteration we've gone through epics and kind of marked this for 1.1. So we can go through them one by one, and I'm sure this actually we have a way like a lot of epics here. I don't think we can do all of this in 1.1. So I think that's why I wanted to talk about each of the epics again and see if you guys think, all of you think something we can push it to 1.2. Um, and probably we need to create a target for 1.2 as well. So let me go here and create a target for 1.2.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would almost suggest that anything that's still in that to-do column is 1.2. Like, let's try to make our minor releases still happen fairly frequently.
Yeah. Trying to Joe, do you remember how did I create the last one? Is it
It's somewhat involved. Um, it might not be worth to do it now.
is it a new view? No, right?
You've got to make a new view. You've got to have a new label and multiple projects. You have to have a new project milestone. There's a whole
Pro-
bunch of stuff. So I don't know if it's worth it to do that sync with the group. Um, maybe we should just talk about whether we think any of the non in progress designs in the V1 thing should stick in V1, right? Like if we go with the assumption everything that's in that leftmost column is just going to be V2, V1.2, we can do that async. So is there
Yeah.
anything there that should still stick in 1.1 is my question.
So should we go through them all of them at one shot, or do you want to like I
Maybe we
can
should say, does anyone have any suggestion for any of the no status cards sticking into 1.1? And if you have it, then call it out rather than going through each one individually.
okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So the first one is I'll read through them. First one is initial kubectl operator plugin updates for operator controller and catalog D. Um, at least, do you think should I push it back to 1.x? I was feeling like if you have already bring it up to 1.1, I can just create a quick label
I,
here.
I wouldn't, let's not move anything right now. Let's just go quickly through them. And if anything needs to stay, then let's maybe move it over into designing temporarily.
I can
And
move
then,
to the accepted also, right?
well, I wouldn't move it all the way over there. Just something that all I wanted, I mean, my opinion, everyone, if you've got a different opinion, I think it would be a lot faster if folks just shouted out, hey, I think we should do pick a ticket number for 1.1. Anything that doesn't get talked about is going to go into 1.2. I can do that later if that works.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think the one with kube airbag proxy, I believe it is the sooner we do it, the better. But I don't want to put Camila on the spot. Camila, do you have anything to say about this one? Do you think we should target it for 1.1? And I did put Camila on the spot, sorry.
I don't know, right? I don't know how we are splitting cheese 1.1, 1.2, what exactly that means. Maybe if someone brings more context for me, how that works, I can, because that one that we are doing about it could be RBAC proxy, replace that. Theoretically, we want to be still compatible with everything, right? So how we define
So
these
as
milestones?
priority, so the topmost priority things go to 1.1. Things which cannot wait 1.2, right? So because we'll do 1.1 first and then do 1.2. So whatever is high priority with respect to, we need to do it now, should be the most important things should go to 1.1.
Yeah,
My
and I'm
my per-
suggesting this one. Yeah, one second. I think I'm suggesting this one because Camila, you were quite vocal about this, and I got the impression that there is some sense of urgency with that because the image will not be supported upstream at some point. So this is why I'm suggesting this one for the next release.
Yeah, and honestly, like the design for that seems much further along than the design and implementation for the permission validation preflights. Like the permission validation preflights requires API changes in our status, which is always going to be like immediately a large epic, whereas the changing out QBarback proxy for another implementation is sort of an internal change that doesn't affect the API and probably isn't quite as hard. So I would imagine if we're just thinking about how fast this stuff progresses, I would think the QBarback proxy stuff progresses faster than the permission pre-flight check. But that makes me have another thought, which is, should we just release train this stuff and say we're going to take the stuff that's highest on the list and we're going to have time-based releases, and whatever we merged in the last X weeks is what goes into the release? Like, I wonder if putting 1.1 labels on here is actually just confusing things. Like, let's just do the topmost things, and then that's what gets in the next time we do a release.
That is actually a good idea. So maybe we should create, basically we should not have a 1.1 dashboard. It should be basically a 1.x dashboard, and then we have whatever we accept and implement, and then we just do time-based release from there.
I think so. We just have to make sure we
Same thing.
pick good, like how long do we go between releases?
And also we need to be judicious about the priority of the epics.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean the priority would be what actually will create the rank, right? I mean the priority, yeah.
And then just stick to whatever 6 weeks or whatever we want. I mean, it doesn't have to be a huge decision. We can just try it and then adjust as we go along.
Yep.
I agree.
So maybe we could just start a poll in the upstream Slack and, do 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks and see where we land as a starting.
Do you think it makes sense to say for this first one, let's do these 4 things, and however long it takes, that will be what sets our minor release cadence as a start? Or should we try to set it and hit it?
I think that either way is okay, but if we want to do the former, as you suggest, we need to have a very good articulated vision for what we want out of the release. So I have some ideas.
Do we need a release cadence like you always do a release after X time? Or can we, okay, I think now we have enough thing, we do a release.
I think time-based is way easier, right? Because then you do not have to ask anyone. I mean, it's all, every time if you go to model and every time basically we need to have a discussion about do we need to do it release now, or should we wait for this feature to come in? It's always going to be this uncertainty about, okay, how do I decide? I mean, you have to ask the community meeting or things like that. The time-based release, on the other hand, is more of a release train thing, and also we can put maybe automation to release it. I mean, less. Hopefully the monorepo thing is done, and then we don't have to even update catalog daily releases here in an operator controller. So it more will be like automatically on a certain day we do a release and maybe it's like whatever weeks people say. Like I think I really like Pierre's idea about do a poll in upstream community and see what we're suggesting the time-based release and what time do you think it will work, because we just need to start with one number, like it's 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and then if it does not work, then you can readjust.
Yeah, and we're also not backporting stuff yet. No one has asked us to do that. So, if we want to release the minor version every single day, that's also fine, right? Like there might not be anything in it, but it's not like it burdens us because we've got 15 versions that we're trying to support. Like that's just not a thing yet. So I don't think the cadence matters all that much.
Can we
I tend
put
to
like
agree.
a day of every first work day of a month we release?
Every yeah, I mean Monday or something, right? I mean something like that.
Yeah. If it's not Monday, the first work day is Tuesday. But yeah. Like next year, I don't know, 25, we will have Christmas, all this stuff. Let's imagine that the first Monday is bank holiday, right? Tuesday we do the release.
Yeah, I mean, this is a different format of basically time-based release, right? Basically, what you're saying is let's make
Mm.
it 4 weeks rather than 6 weeks.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, more something like specifically, like the day we know, like the first week of the month we do a release, right?
I think, I mean, we don't have to get into deciding right now. I think we should probably do a poll and,
Sure.
ask what people want.
Sorry.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah,
Sorry.
so no problem. I'll keep this option, Camila. So I'll start a poll in the upstream, asking first Monday of every month, or 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. These are the options we have.
The other thing, what about everything that is most important for when we have a label, like priority backlog,
Yeah,
priority very soon, something like that?
yeah. So we'll create this similar to 1.1 epics the way we have now. We'll create something called um, the current backlog or whatever the name is. And then we can actually prioritize, because here we can move around, like, if you want to put something on the top is of more priority. I mean, basically it would be a stack, where the top one would be the highest priority and the bottom one would be the lowest priority. So, and we can refine that with every probably community meeting, making
Sure.
sure that the priority is all aligned.
So what do we feel should be at the top of the no status there? Me personally, I would like us to do the webhook support and the namespace, the watch namespaces. Anything that can broaden the amount of
Mono
content that V1 can.
monolithic as well, right? I cannot read the cards, but monorepo.
that one's already moved along, so that one's good. We've already pulled that into accepted.
Monorepo, yeah, the monorepo is
Yep.
here. And I think the webhook is this one, Epic 1492.
Yep.
Um,
I would also put the watch namespace, which I think is at the bottom of second last in the list.
Is
Yep.
somebody sharing anything?
Yeah, Lala's sharing his screen. We're just looking at the
Wow, I don't
V1.1
see it. Okay.
epics
My apologies. I don't
in the
see it.
project.
It's weird.
let me stop sharing and then restart again the sharing. Maybe that would fix it.
I think it's on the client side. Zoom puts the shared thing in a weird spot sometimes.
Now I see it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. There's some bugs in Zoom, weird bugs.
Hey, I just had a question. So, Per, what does the watch namespace get us?
I think it broadens the different types of deployments that we can have for a particular operator, which I think is more in line with sort of V1 registry bundles, or at least it broadens the let's say the number of bundles that we can support in V1. And parallel to that, I don't know whether we have an epic or not, but I would really like the installation flow to be as hands-off as possible. I think it's very cumbersome to create namespace, create service account, figure out what the permissions are, create roles and role bindings, and then go through the installation.
Yeah, we've got an epic for that around kubectl operator.
Okay, so we're envisioning that as a sort of CLI tool first.
Yeah, and we can rename that.
Okay.
That's just the project that exists now.
Yep. That's fine.
The other thing
So-
that I would potentially put somewhere up near the top is do we have well, we've got the one about parameter passing that goes right along with the watch namespaces stuff. So 381, that needs to exist essentially in order to be able to support single or multi namespace operators.
All right, so that should be higher up.
Yeah. So basically, if we want to support single or multi namespace, those operators require the user, the installer, to say which namespaces. So in order for there to be a spot for someone to say which namespaces, we need to have some parameter passing going on.
Right, makes sense.
The
So
other
Joe,
thing that,
sorry,
yeah,
go ahead. Now I wanted to ask you about the multi namespace thing. I think at some point of time, I mean, at some point we decided that probably V1 will not support multi namespace, right?
I think we should talk about whether we're going to do that as part of the designing and refining. So
Yeah,
regardless of where it is on the list, we should talk about it soon.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
regardless of whether we do it or not, we should talk about it soon. The other thing that is very related to the parameter passing stuff, Lala, I was noticing that I couldn't always rank everything. So
yeah,
something weird is
tricky.
happening.
Yeah, it's a little tricky, but I can do it. I mean, let's, I think in the here, I think let's write down the things which we care about, and then I can probably do it offline. The webhook support, I
Yeah,
think we
which
talked about.
I actually have a branch PR work in progress up that's experimenting with that.
And yeah,
So maybe,
the
sorry, go.
next one, yeah, next one is the kubectl operator plugin, right? That's basically user experience, improves user experience.
Yeah, and that goes, in my mind, that goes hand in hand with, it doesn't have to happen alongside, but it works in concert with the pre-flight check for permission management. So in my head, what we do is we build the pre-flight check that adds a new field to the status that says, here's the rules that are missing or something like that. And then the kubectl operator plugin implements the install flow that Per was talking about, where it can create a cluster extension, or it can create a namespace, create a service account, create a cluster extension, wait for the reconciler to reconcile it once. It'll say, here's all the rules you're missing. The CLI can wait for that to happen, find it, and then go and present the user like, hey, here's the rules that you need. Do you want me to create those for you too? Yes. Okay, do that. And it can sort of orchestrate the whole thing in like a tutorial sort of mode.
So that's the permission validation pre-flight check 988, right?
Yeah, we've already got that one pulled in the list though.
Right. Right. So we have the webhook support, the permission validation pre-flight check, and then the initial kubectl operator plugin updates for operator control catalog team.
But these are not, I don't think these are all going to be 1.1.
Yeah, not only are these pretty big, so they probably won't all be 1.1, but didn't we also discuss the general plumbing as part of something we wanted to make some headway on for 1.1 as well?
The feature gate stuff.
No, not the feature gates so much, but like we touched on it with the watch namespace, and I think we're having some other conversations elsewhere, but more about how we plumb through the values, right? Like we've run into it with discussions around proxying and the like for catalog D, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was want to ask about the same. I kind of asked Todd when the meeting started in the Slack. Does upstream support proxy? Have we ever tested it?
So I know Bryce had mentioned that it works, but I'm not familiar with the specific tests he ran. I don't know if anybody else here tried it also.
So with respect to proxy, you just need to set the environment of the deployment to have the appropriate variables for the Golang libraries to understand, which are like HTTP proxy, HTTPS proxy, and no proxy. That can be done upstream or downstream, and downstream has a specific resource that we have to look at to get those values, whereas upstream, it's up to the person who deploys it. So they may have to modify the deployment before they actually get proxy support.
Yeah, it's not that simple. apart from providing environment variables to the OLM itself, OLM components, OLM also needs to provide those variables, if present, to the cluster extension. So it's a bit more complicated than that, I believe. At least in how I understand it in OLM v1. Oh, sorry, OLM v0.
Yeah, we pass those on through whenever we generate a deployment. I'm pretty sure the controllers that we, like if the MongoDB operator is being managed by OLM and OLM has those environment variables, we also set those environment variables on the MongoDB operator as well. We do that in OLM v0. We might want to do something different in OLM v1. I don't know. So maybe that should be part of what we talk about for the design, like whether that should be opt-in, opt-out, always pass it through, etc.
Yeah, yes.
Like in theory, if there's some way that a controller is running, it could look up proxy information itself, right? And maybe that's what we would say for OLM v1. Maybe not, because that's annoying and a lot of the content doesn't already do that. So maybe we'd say, well, if you are a registry v1 bundle, we'll pass it through for you. Like, so there's various ways that we can go about that.
Should we create at least a card for this proxy support in OLM v1, like in a Jira issue or Jira Epic?
Can't hurt.
Also, that's why I was asking about the general plumbing there, right? Because we have that one epic that says cluster extension parameters pass through to templating engine, and we're seeing that we can break that down into several different use cases. So maybe what we should do is, I guess what I'd like to see out of this, right, is we have some specific use cases in mind, but we want to have a consistent approach to all of it, right? We don't want to just bolt on new things for each of the use cases.
Yeah.
So we need to have some overall design that guides how each one of those specific use cases is fulfilled.
So, Jordan, just to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying, we've got a general use case around cluster specific parameterization that needs to happen when OLM manages a bundle. That parameterization can happen in a couple of ways in theory. One is the person who creates the cluster extension could just provide it directly. Another is OLM v1 figures it out and injects stuff based on what it knows without the cluster admin having to do anything extra per cluster extension. And you're saying we need to wrangle all of that essentially and have a high level design for how do we end up with objects on a cluster essentially? Like what goes into it? What are the inputs?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at it from a bottom up perspective, right? Much of what you say is correct, or sorry, aligns with what I'm thinking, but it's more that I'm going, we have watch namespaces that we want plumbed through. We have proxy configuration that we may want to have plumbed through. And those both speak to the need for a general purpose plumbing approach. And then how do we want to implement those things? I think really comes into what you're talking about there with it, which is do we require manual intervention on the part of the cluster admin or some other entity there, or do we deduce it from available information in the environment? And
Yeah, I
I
think
think we're looking at it largely the same way.
Yeah, I think we should split it out by uh, what what are the assumptions that registry v1 bundle authors make versus what are assumptions that pick your format of choice authors make. In my mind, for registry v1, we should try to do as much as possible that OLM v0 did that makes sense in the context of v1's design decisions. So, for example, for the HTTP proxy stuff, OLM v0 plumbs the proxy environment down into the deployments that it makes. That seems like a reasonable thing to do for registry v1 bundles. So we should probably do that in OLM v1. But maybe we decide we don't want to do that for Helm charts because we don't want to have any magic. Like we're not going to implement magic for you. If you want to do stuff with Helm, then you use Helm things for that, which are stuff that goes into the schema of your values, and then someone can decide how to set that up, or they can put something directly into their Helm chart that knows how to look up the HTTP proxy values and have them in there without the user having to configure them. But like that's where I want to become less opinionated.
Yeah, I really like the idea of putting a fence around registry v1 because what we're really talking about there is migration and adoption. And consistency of experience is going to be really important there. But with regards to the new experiences, perhaps it's best for us to take a less opinionated perspective where we just enable mechanisms rather than uh, implement a behavior.
Yeah, I agree.
So do you guys want to have a separate like meeting for this epic, defining this epic and discussing about um, what we want to handle as part of this epic?
Are we ready? Like we've got a bunch of stuff in design now. Are we ready to pull more in?
Um, the proxy is, I feel like, is also important piece because a lot
Yeah,
of
I mean, I would say so. At least the proxy work that I've been doing is focused on downstream, and not all operators will require proxy settings, but I think we need to have some additional thought beyond just getting proxy working downstream. So,
Yeah, I think I would. Well, maybe my suggestion earlier, where Jordan helpfully described the fencing off of registry view one, maybe that helps with the problem of how to come up with a general design, which is we don't have to yet because um, we're still not going to have any cluster admin provided values yet because for registry v1 we're going to plumb them directly through from the operator controller environment. So like that's just a pass through that the user never sees only because it's a registry v1 bundle. And maybe that gets us beyond the current space that we're at without having to tackle the harder problem of general purpose plumbing.
okay. So at least I think that part maybe we can document it in upstream, like in the document as part of documentation. Do you think it's a worthy documentation to have?
So I would guess in a perfect world, what I'd like to see is that the the focus point or the person who is championing the watch namespace and the person who is talking about the proxies um, and the person who's working on the webhook definitions are all having conversations about, this seems like the best approach to plumb these things through for a registry v1. What do you think? Is it going to work for you? And then we're coming up with a thing that's nicely cordoned off for registry v1 bundles only, but it's consistent across these specific use cases. And so, we're not trying to design a general thing, but we are trying to be consistent with these three use cases we know about.
Yeah, there's another plumbing thing that needs to be added to this list, which is all the subscription.spec.config values for registry v1. So that's just more cluster admin provided values. So I've got a POC PR that implements a ton of this in a hacky thrown together way, but it serves at least as a place that we can potentially rally some discussions around. So
That also is
So I think,
not present is Epic right now, right, Joe?
what's
yeah,
that?
well, so his proof of concept implements Epic 381. That's the Epic that we have that says, hey, subscription spec needs to come down through plumbing.
Yeah, it also implements the webhook definition support and the watch namespace stuff.
Right.
But it's not really mergeable or anything even close to that as it is because it's all jammed in together. So, but what I mean is like the reason it's all jammed together is sort of the point that Jordan's making, which is it's all sort of related to plumbing stuff. So that's why I'm suggesting that we sort of use that potentially as a way to tease out the various conversations we need to have around what do we want plumbing to look like. But regardless, I still think that Todd can make progress on plumbing stuff through for the HTTP proxy stuff now. And we can, if we want to talk about plumbing in the context of just that, I think it's going to be much, much easier because it doesn't have anything to do with cluster admin provided configuration, which is where the real can of worms, I think, gets opened up.
Cool. So I just adding an action item on the page saying, and I need to create a poll in upstream channel, in the community channel. The time-based release.
So I thought we talked about maybe letting, for this first time, the short list of features that we were planning to work kind of establish at least an initial cadence for releases.
Right.
I
And
threw that out, but Pear had some good reasons why not to do that. I'm happy if we have a poll and say, okay, let's shoot for this and we'll see how it goes.
And Joe, I think the poll after the poll is done, depending on what's the result of the poll, we can most likely gonna have to create a dashboard like with all the epics there, and then we accordingly, depending on the priority, we can refine them, like stack them accordingly, right? Basically, to create a dashboard which will reflect the overall priority of the epics, relative priority of
We
the.
can do that. I mean, that is entirely orthogonal from when the release is, in my mind.
The reason, I mean, I understand they're orthogonal, but I think the reason I'm saying maybe they're related, because if we decide not to have time-based releases and we want to have target-based releases, then we have to basically create dashboard for every time for 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and then accordingly.
Is there anyone that thinks we should have a milestone-based release rather than time-based release? I thought the poll was going to be, it will be time-based releases. What's our cadence going to be? But if we also need to include, I think it should be milestone-based, then yeah, then we'll have to talk about that. But I got the
Yeah,
impression
I was
we had
thinking, no,
agreed on time.
I also had the idea that I will only ask for that cadence of time-based releases. But towards the end of it, I think I thought maybe including an option to have a milestone-based releases probably be more burden up the poll. I'm fine if nobody thinks we should include that. I think you can do a poll just based on the time-based releases and what time we need to do a release, the cadence. So in that case, Joe, I'm going to add a dash action item on you and also me probably because I need to learn that to create a dashboard which will reflect the relative priority of epics. Yeah. Take a look into the action items and let me know if it looks okay.
Looks good to me.
Awesome. Thanks everyone, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, Lala.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.